Imagine your favorite video game. Now imagine going downtown with some friends, buying a ticket, sitting down in a group of strangers in a huge dark room, and doing absolutely nothing to control that video game while a director or writer ruin it. Today on
That was deep.
I didn't know I was gonna go that dark with it, honestly. Half winging it. I had the concept and then just went with it.
Yeah, man. All right.
Yeah, so today we are talking about movies based on video games. And there's a lot of fodder there.
That's one word for it. Yeah.
So we have mentioned in the past the Mortal Kombat movie. I don't remember to what extent we discussed it, but I know we've talked about it.
Yep.
And, you know, I would say most people probably think of that as one of the top tier video game based movies.
Oh yeah,
And
hands down.
I probably still do too. Even though watching it recently, I was like, yeah, that was a cheese fest, but it was still like in a good way.
Yeah, it was great. You're right. I think it's my top three video game movies, honestly. So I think it's great.
I mean, you kind of have to forgive it given that it came out in 95, but
Right.
for the most part the movie it works. There's some special effects and stuff that have not aged well over the last 26 years, but
Yeah.
aside from that, it's not bad. And it maintains the content from the video game pretty well. Um give you some good fight scenes, interesting character development. Some of the characters are
Yeah.
again cheesy. Kano is a good example.
Yeah,
But
but Scorpion and Sub Zero. I mean, what else do you need in a movie, really? So I think
yeah,
it
and
handles it pretty
even
good.
with the get over here, they did it all.
That's so bad. But yeah, I love it. Love all that. I mean, compared to today fandom kind of gets a level of tension and seriousness in movies. Like the Marvel movies that are such a blockbuster now, even 15 years, well, this more than 15 years, 20 years ago, for example, they would have looked like Mortal Kombat. They wouldn't have gotten, I guess, the respect that fans want from the property, right? So back in the 90s, the fact that we even got a good Mortal Kombat movie, as cheesy as
Yeah,
it is still pretty mind blowing.
I mean, if Spider-Man was probably the first good Marvel movie, right?
Yeah.
And that didn't happen till 2001?
Is that was that late? Yeah, you know what? You're right. Yeah. And those are
I think it was
fantastic movies.
2001, maybe 2002. It was something like
Yeah.
that. But those were good, but that was the first Marvel film that was like the first comic book film that really shined for audiences, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
There was like
exactly.
there were I mean, okay, I'm ignoring Superman, but
Oh,
and
a
I don't wanna
notable
make
video
any enemies
game.
here.
That was one of
Well,
my
no,
picks.
but I'm talking about, like, Marvel, like, comic book movies.
Okay.
Batman came before it. Batman was good, but it was not to the visual representation degree that Spider-Man was.
Yeah.
Spider-Man was the first one that really pushed the envelope visually as well as telling the story of the character. And as far as video games go, I mean, Super Mario Brothers, let's go back to 1993. Super Mario Brothers tried to push the envelope visually. It tried
Yeah.
to do all sorts of crap, and I think nobody knew what it was trying to do anymore by the time it came out.
It took
But
some liberties, we gotta say.
like even on top of that, apparently there was character development in that movie that was completely scrapped and cut. And in the Koopa cousins, Iggy and I can't remember the other one's name.
I know the guys you're talking about. Yeah, I don't remember
Yeah,
the characters. Okay.
the
They
two.
had more background then.
Yeah, apparently there's a version out of the movie out there now that you can find, through illicit means where they added that content back in and it makes them more I guess they're kind of against King Koopa a little bit. So there
Okay.
was more to that movie than just that. They didn't think that they were kind of anti-authoritarian. I guess.
Right.
And
Rebels,
that
I
was
guess.
completely cut from the movie, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it just became this really bizarre sort of, I don't know, fever dream of what Super Mario Brothers should be.
Yeah, that the cut content version of that movie, I actually really want to see it. I tried looking for it on
Yeah, I
places,
do.
and I couldn't find it actually. I do want to see it though, because I have not watched that movie it feels like since I was a kid. And I know the movie is, I was gonna say it's not aged well, but it was not good back then either. But I kind of still want to see it.
I've seen it. I think the last time I saw it, I was in my 20s. So
Okay.
it's not been since I was a kid. Um, it is a total cheese fest. It's not great. It's fun. To me, it's on the level of like Howard the Duck. It's not a good movie. It's a fun movie. You
Yeah.
know?
And you know what? Not every movie I watch has to be like amazing plot wise. Doesn't have to be that great. Like sometimes you just want a popcorn movie that's fun, and that's perfectly fine. And a lot of the movies we're going
Yeah.
to talk about are just fun movies, and that's okay.
So, we got the Super Mario Brothers movie and we got the Mortal Kombat movie 2 years later, and it was a huge step up. But between those, there was Street Fighter.
Ah, poor
And
Raul Julia, such a
I
amazing
have
actor, and this is what he's left us with: Street Fighter when he
I've not
dies.
seen this movie, and I wanted to watch it before we did this, but I couldn't find it anywhere without having to pay for it, whereas it was included with streaming services a few months back, so I missed my window.
Yeah.
Sure, that'll come around again, but for now, I don't wanna pay to rent it.
No, I watched it not too long ago. I think I want to say last year. My wife and I sat and watched it with the kids. She probably shouldn't have watched it, but they were in the background playing. They were getting an eyeful, and my kids recognized the characters. They recognized Ryu as the wizard that throws fireballs from the video game because they actually like the
Oh,
video games
wow.
quite a bit. So they recognized some of the characters. They did not recognize Guile, which was Jean Claude Van Damme. Like I mean, you look at this movie, Van Damme, Raul Julia. They even have Kylie Minogue, who's like a famous singer and from Australia. It's a decent
Who did she
cast.
play?
Sorry,
Who did she play?
Cammy.
Oh,
So it's
okay, I
like,
can
yeah, it's like why not? She has an accent. It's not
yeah.
British, right, Cammy, but it's close. It's Australian. It's the same thing, right? The
Back
movie,
then, yeah.
yeah, it's not a good movie, but it's fun because I like it because it's the video game or the movie that's based on the video game that also spawned its own video game, right? There's Street Fighter the movie, the game in arcades, and I actually played that a fair amount,
I wish I had played
surprisingly.
that. I think it was also on, like, PlayStation and Saturn or something like that.
I think so,
That's
yeah,
what I wanted to play, but I never wanted to pay to play it, and none
yeah.
of my friends ever had it, and it was I don't think I ever saw it on rental shelves, so I was like, "Well, I guess I won't play it."
I'm not
I
surprised it
wanna
was not
buy it.
stocked. But it was like the Mortal Kombat trick of live action sprites, I guess. But it's just so much worse, like so terrible. Like it made Mortal Kombat 1 look good, I think. But yeah, I still put quarters into it. Right, I couldn't cut it at Street Fighter 2, so I played that one quite a bit.
But something to consider is Super Mario Brothers, while not being a good movie, it really got this whole ball rolling as
Yeah.
far as getting video games turned into movies. So the very next year we saw Street Fighter, but we also saw Double Dragon, which I cannot find anywhere online. It virtually is inexistent except for the trailer.
Yeah. I've not seen it recently, I don't think. I did see it when I was a teenager. I think it was on the cable movie channel. And I only watched it because Alyssa Milano was in it. And I fucking loved her as a teenager. So I thought she was great. So I can't remember who the main actors are who played Billy and Jimmy or
It
Bimmy.
also Yeah, I don't know who that is, but it also had Robert Patrick.
Right. He's the bad guy.
So
T-1000.
he had Terminator 2 where he played T-1000 and then went to do this.
Well,
Oof.
yeah, okay, but T-1000, no speaking role. Double Dragon, totally the starring villain. I mean, that's a step up.
Yeah, hey, it's like a lateral step down.
It's like, but he'd rather the silent movie option. Yeah, I feel bad for him. But yeah, he was in that.
But he's gone on to do cool stuff, so it's not like it did anything too terrible to his career, but
I think like Raul Julia, I think end of the day for some actors, it's a paycheck, right? Like it's guaranteed paycheck. I
Yeah,
think in I think in
and
Raul Julia's case, he did it because his kids said, "Hey, you should do a video game movie. Go do Street Fighter," and he did it. Maybe Robert Patrick had the
yeah,
same idea, right?
I'm sure there was family input from the little ones, like,
Yeah,
"This is on my desk. What should I do?" And then the kids find out and they're like, "Yes, please."
do that. Yes, play this.
So, I don't wanna go through everything, but I wanna bring one up and ask you about it.
Sure.
I got a movie that I kind of enjoyed even though I know it's bad. So there's a lot of that in this genre. But Doom.
I forgot that
Did
was
you
a
ever see
movie.
Doom?
No, I did not see it. I was never a huge Doom fan though. Although even if I was, I don't think I would have saw this movie. Who was in this one? Was The
I
Rock in this one?
The Rock.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't remember who played the main character, but it had The Rock, um, who ultimately becomes the villain.
Oh, you mean he wasn't the Doom guy? I thought he was like the hero.
No, he's the bad
Oh,
guy. Okay, Carl
okay.
Urban is the hero.
I like him though. He's
He's
great.
Doom guy.
Yeah,
So you basically what's going on is they instead of this all happening on Mars or
right.
some other planet like Mars's moon or whatever, it's on Earth. It's in 29 Palms, California, actually, which is not too far from where I grew up, couple hours.
Okay.
And
Clearly the inspiration for
there's
Doom.
it's still, same concept, but it's on Earth. And the Rock becomes possessed by a demon. And so
Okay.
you've got this big badass who's now an evil big badass. And Carl Urban, who is part of his platoon, has to take him on and take him down. So they've got this big final scene where this is going on, and he's fighting the monsters and trying to trying not to get killed by everything. And it goes first person like it does in the games. And it
Because of
starts
course it
playing the
does.
music, and it's super cheesy. I think because I'm not a huge Doom fan, I loved it. It was great in how awful it was.
I didn't realize Carl Urban was in it because I like him a lot. He was in Star Trek
Yeah,
reboot as McCoy. He was in Lord of the Rings, right? He was in Xena. I actually like
he
him.
was
And he
in
was also
Dread,
Dread. Yeah, he was great in
and
Dread. I like him as an actor.
he he was in another TV show that the wife and I really liked, Almost Human.
Oh yes, yeah. I've seen the only
Well,
handful of episodes, but that was a great robot cop
yeah, it
show.
only
He was
had,
good
like,
in that.
what, 8 episodes, but it was a good
Yeah,
show. I liked that show. He played the character well,
yeah,
and I didn't realize that that was him because his name was not on my radar back when I watched this movie,
yeah,
but here we are.
yeah. And I like
It
him. I like The Rock. How could you go wrong with such a pair? Well, Mick Doom, I guess.
Yeah, it had Rosamund Pike.
Oh, I know her.
Um, yeah, she was in that movie recently, I Care a Lot or We Care a Lot, something like that,
I
and
think
it was
so.
just
Yeah,
it's an infuriating film.
I've not seen that one either. I got a real gap in my, I guess, movies I've watched over the last few years.
But, yeah, I enjoyed that one for the cheese fest that it was.
Yeah,
It's not something you don't go in and like, "Oh, this is gonna be the best movie of all time." You go in and you're like, "Okay, this is a Doom movie." This is a movie based on a shareware game from 10 years prior that
right. But
everybody loved, and we gotta recreate the over the topness of that game in a somewhat realistic manner.
I
And
see why they
in
did
that
it though.
regard,
Yeah, like I see why they do this because video games were hugely popular even back then, and in corporate world, how can you go wrong by taking a property that's popular with kids and the young people in video games and making that into a movie? How could you go wrong? I can see the marketing spin behind it, but it was just too early, right? Just they never gave the respect I think the fandom deserved, like I was saying before. Because it's on paper it sounds good, but there's definitely a reason why Nintendo basically skipped on movies for decades after the disaster of that original Mario Bros. Movie.
yeah. Well, I mean, this came out after Resident Evil, and Resident Evil proved that it didn't need to like super closely follow the game, but rather
Yeah.
implement some of its lore to be successful. Again, like this one's a toss up whether people think it's a good movie or not, which I can understand because it doesn't closely follow the lore of the games.
Yeah.
Instead, it incorporates some of that lore and tells its own story, which I think is a fair way to do it.
Yeah, I just wonder, would I have liked Resident Evil better if it didn't have the name, right? Because it's basically a B movie horror movie, and I don't mind that. I actually liked it. I actually did see it in theaters when it came out, and I did enjoy Resident Evil. I don't think I watched any of the sequels though, but I think if it was called something else, I probably would have liked it maybe a bit more. I think maybe when I went to first see that movie, I was expecting more of Resident Evil, right? Because at the time, I think I'd played. Would I have played the series by then? Because I was late coming to that series. I don't know, but it was not a bad
Uh,
movie.
Resident Evil Resident Evil 2 came out in 98, I want to say.
Okay. So then, yeah, because I played
So,
2 and 3. So I guess maybe I would have played 2. I would have expected more of the storyline in the movie, and it wasn't there. But it was not a bad
mhm.
movie. I actually quite did like Resident Evil.
But yeah, Doom came after both Resident Evil and Lara Croft Tomb Raider with Angelina Jolie. And I think it's safe to say that both of those were at least modest successes.
Yeah.
I mean, Resident Evil went on to spawn a 6-film franchise.
I can't believe it went that long. I can't believe
I
it's so many.
I don't know how they did it. I don't understand how each movie it kept making enough money to warrant another one when they were heavy on the special effects.
Yeah.
I I enjoyed them. I didn't think they were good enough to go to the movie theater to see.
Right.
I had plenty of friends who did, so there you go.
Was Mila Jovovich in all of those?
I believe so, because
Okay.
she was a new character to Resident Evil. She was
Yeah.
Alice, which is not somebody that was in the games, at least up to that point. I don't know if she's been introduced. I don't follow Resident Evil that closely.
Yeah, because
Um,
the main characters
I
are is Claire Redfield, and there is one other character, or is it just
There's
Claire?
Claire and Chris, the Redfields. Um, Obviously Albert Wesker.
Yeah.
There's Leon Kennedy
Leon. Yeah.
and Jill Valentine.
Jill
I think it's safe
Valentine.
to
That's what I'm
say
thinking
that
of.
those 5 are really at the heart of the franchise.
Yeah. Yeah, and they
And
keep coming back.
mhm.
Okay. Yeah, but that was a pretty good movie. Pretty gory. I mean, I think it may be true to the true to the short source material in terms of the gore and the violence and there were zombies. There's lots of zombies and a bit of intrigue
Yeah.
there. It was pretty good.
It brought the theme and the idea of feeling helpless against an overwhelming horde of creatures that are near unstoppable sometimes
Yeah.
to the big screen, and it was successful in that regard, I'd say.
Yep.
All right, you got any up your sleeve for me?
Well, you did pick my earlier pick, which was to say, the Superman, which was of course based on the breakout classic from Kemco, Superman on the NES. And I gotta say, man, how do you take Christopher Reeve and Marlon Brando and convince them to make a video game movie? I just don't know. That was my joke
Wow.
for the day. No, but I do have one actually. Maybe kind of a joke still, but I did not realize this was a movie, and when I saw it, I immediately said, "I know that," and it was Ratchet and Clank, and I immediately said to my wife, "I know this one. I didn't know it was a movie, but we did an episode on this game series of Ratchet and Clank." And then five
Yes.
minutes later, it dawned on me, "No, asshole, you did an episode on Jack and Daxter," and it was the whole. It was just the whole thing again where I realized, shit, this is why I confuse the two damn series so easily. It's like I just can't tell them apart. So I was all excited for a minute that there's a Jack and Daxter movie, but no, I was wrong. It was Ratchet and
Yeah.
Clank. It was an animated movie. I don't know how good it was, but it seemed true to the casting. It had the same main voice actor from the game was in the movie. It had David Kay, I think his name is, as Clank, and I know him from Beasties or Beast Wars, depending on what country you're in. So it
Okay.
seemed like a decent take on the game. So that came out in the '90s, I believe.
Well, the Ratchet and Clank movie came out in 2016.
Oh, so not the '90s.
No. I think
Much like
it's
the
very
'90s.
much It's a lot of tongue in cheek humor, and I think it's more in line with what they ended up doing with the Ratchet and Clank reboot than
Okay,
what they did with the original Ratchet and Clank. But I mean, those are it's not so far apart that it's like you play the new one and the old one feels super foreign. Instead,
exactly.
it's a more interesting retelling of the first game is what I understand. Again, I've not played either of these games and I haven't seen the movie. I wanted to watch the movie one night, but uh kiddo wasn't interested, wife wasn't interested, so I was like, "All right, fine."
It's hard to sell kids. It's hard to sell them on a movie or a character like an anime character. I think they're not familiar with. I've had that problem with my kids where it's like, hey, you want to watch She-Ra? They never watched She-Ra, right? Like I did as a kid. I used to watch She-Ra and He-Man, but I had to make them sit and watch the first episode, and they were kind of hooked on that reboot. So sometimes you got to kind of force them to watch something.
Yeah. Trying to think. Oh, I forgot about that one. Rampage
What? That
came
wasn't the
out in
movie, was it?
2018.
Like
Yeah,
based
again
on the building
starred The Rock.
smashing monster game?
Yes.
Are you kidding me? I didn't even know that was a
No,
thing.
they
Hold on.
did. Yeah, they did the first George is
Right.
a gorilla in a zoo, and his handler and trainer sees him becoming much larger, more aggressive, starts to worry, and he gets big enough to where he breaks out and starts heading toward downtown LA. And then it actually they end up also seeing the wolf, which is Ralph, I think is what they
Yes.
nickname him.
Yeah, Ralph and Lizzie
Um
was the lizard. I remember I loved the game growing up. I can't believe that's a movie. And you see who's starring in it. Of course.
yeah,
The Rock.
and the movie was actually kind of fun. It was. It was not what Rampage was, because first off, the original Rampage games were people turned into these giant monsters,
Right.
whereas in this case, it was actual animals turned into these giant monsters of the animals they were. So I think, um, I know for sure Ralph and George make an appearance. Don't remember how big Lizzie's appearance was. Um, it might have been a reference to a potential sequel toward the end. I don't recall. But
Well,
yeah, you
'cause everything's got to be a gritty reboot or a trilogy or something these days. I can't believe
yeah.
this came out. This is 2018. This is recent too. I love that The Rock is starring in this. He must have a thing for video game movies. But
I mean, it was a big budget movie.
yeah,
It it tried to tell a good story. It didn't really try super hard to recreate what you saw in the games, and instead tried to take what Rampage was and turn it into a potential kaiju film.
right.
So, I mean, because at the end of the day, it's giant monsters destroying buildings,
Yeah, there's not much plot
right?
in Rampage, right? Like I've known
No.
the original arcade one I played to death. I played some of the later sequels that came out, the pre-rendered graphics. I think N64 had one, but even those I don't think had much plot. At least not plot worth turning into a feature film. Anyway, so I think that's kind of odd they would even try this one. That's definitely got to be one of the weirder video game IPs to pluck from, honestly.
Well, it's not a whole lot weirder than the idea of taking Battleship and turning it into a film. So
I don't, so a coworker of mine, I think he wanted to go see it, and I told him, "Are you kidding me? Like, no, I'm not going to see Battleship the movie. What are you fucking kidding me?" And he went and saw it. He swears it was a good flick. I just don't see it. Like they even had pegs, right, as the aliens or something like that, or as the enemies. But it's like the pegs come down and
really?
hit the ships. That's what I heard anyway. But I can't think of a look. The only thing dumber than making Battleship the board game a movie is when I heard that they're taking Tetris and making Tetris a series of flicks. That's in the works. I don't even
What?
know how. Yeah, I'm gonna look it up and see
How?
if it's still around. I know, but it was not just one flick. They were making more than one Tetris film.
Oh
It
my
was a Warner
gosh.
Brothers thing. Hold on, let me just double check. Because it's been IMDb for a long time. Yeah, Tetris film. Tetris is a bio. Oh, that's a no. That's an Apple Plus thing. No, there's a movie for sure. Hold on.
Now I gotta
Hold
look
on.
this up.
Oh, okay. They're doing one on the chronicling the development and release of the video game Tetris. That I'd watch.
Oh.
That's
Yeah, that
interesting.
could be really
Yeah.
cool.
I was thinking it was going to be like the Tetranominos invading the Earth or something stupid like that. No, I could totally watch this. I'm looking at the cast. Taron Egerton plays one of the characters. I love him in The Kingsman and all that. Yeah, not bad. You know what?
Yeah,
I
it's
changed my mind. Tetris is not a bad idea for a movie.
getting
I'd totally watch that.
yeah, that seems like a really cool idea. The story behind how Tetris came to be from its original inception in Russia to
Yeah.
actually becoming marketed around the world is a very interesting story. And so a lot of that stuff, I think we're going to start seeing more of that with the success of what was that Console Wars.
Yes.
And that's supposed to be getting turned into a movie or a series or something. I think that would be really cool to see. There's a lot more in the behind the scenes as far as getting the business done we don't think about that's sometimes shady or super interesting or really smart decision making that you wouldn't have expected that that was what they were doing or what they were going for, you know? And I think there's something to that. And with all these, like, we got movies about every other industry.
Well, did you ever see? It was a long time ago now. Was it The Late Shift, which was the HBO movie about Leno and David Letterman's war about late night?
I've never seen it, and
Okay.
I feel ashamed to say that.
It was really quite good, but that behind the scenes of that industry movie, but give me Sega of America and Sega of Japan and how they released the Saturn, the Sega CD, the Dreamcast, like that story, I think would be really great, like dramatic movie about how Sega of
Yeah,
America
well,
is telling Japan you're fucking nuts, stop, please stop, and just that
I
industry.
I want that to be a series. I would love that to
Yes,
be a series. There's so much there to tell, and yeah, Tom Kalinske dealing with Sega of Japan was
yeah,
it's you when you're listening to what he went through and fought for, it's just so frustrating that the executives in Sega of Japan were like, "No, no, no, you're completely wrong." And then he'd be proven right time and time again.
yeah, yeah. I think that'd be a great story to tell. I'm just trying to think of like other video game properties that are probably missing out. Because we mentioned Tomb Raider a bit earlier, and I think that was actually quite a good movie for what it was. It channeled maybe a little bit of natural treasure in there, as well as of course your Indiana Jones. I liked it quite a bit. I did not see the
Mhm.
reboot of that came out a couple years ago either. I should probably look that one up. But I think we're at the point now where any story-driven game, I think now if they did a movie on it, I think could be the potential to be quite good. Like I
Yeah,
almost want to
there's
see a Final Fantasy movie again. Almost. Like I actually liked Advent Children quite a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. Even though it was not a great movie, it was certainly better than Spirits Within. But I think give Square or let Square give another studio a chance to make a Final Fantasy film based on one of the games. I think could be okay.
yeah, I think that could happen. Um, depending on the game. I mean, it's one thing you see stuff like what Naughty Dog has 2 game franchises in the works. There's as far as becoming film adapted. There's
I
The
know the
Last of Us
one.
TV series,
Oh, right.
and there's the Uncharted movies with what's his name?
Tom Holland. Yeah.
Tom Holland, yes.
Yep. Who apparently getting quite buff for the role too. I'm interested to see what he looks like because I love him as Spider Man. I think he's a great Spider Man. So I'm very interested to see him in Uncharted, even though I've not played the games. I get the premise.
And
I'm curious what it's going to be
it's
about.
it's funny because for years now, I've seen the idea kicked around that if they ever make an Uncharted, it should be Nathan Fillion. And finally playing through the first Uncharted game, I'm like, "Okay, I can totally get that."
Yeah,
Based on because he always plays characters like Nathan Drake. And then
right.
he did that indie film that was like 14, 15 minutes where he's played as Nathan Drake, and it was a good representation of the character, and it worked. But I mean, there's the fact now that, uh, Nathan Fillion is getting a little old for the role to be a
Yeah,
young
exactly.
character as he was in the first game. That's the only downside. So I'm interested in seeing Tom Holland play Nathan Drake, and just revisit that character every few years. It doesn't have to be a yearly thing. Give it 2 to 4 years between films, if not a little more, and you've just got boom. He's a little bit older in each one, a little bit wiser
Yeah.
in each one, instead of just daisy chain them. That's that's the
Well,
problem a lot of times is they try to rush them out.
yeah, I don't like the idea of yearly franchises and flicks, or even every couple of years. Definitely space them out. Like even the Spider-Man flicks with Tom Holland, I think should be maybe a little bit further apart, so he grows up a little bit. But I get it. Nathan Fillion, yeah, you're right. I think if they tried doing that 10 years ago, he would have been better for it. But I don't know if the movie would have gotten the attention it deserves. I think we might have had
Mm.
something more along the lines of the Assassin's Creed movie, which was terrible. So, but that's interesting. I didn't realize I forgot about Last of Us, the TV show. That's another game I sadly have not played. But I'm interested in the show if it follows the game closely, because that'd be a way to see the story from the game, which I heard is nothing but excellent. And it also
Oh yeah, the
stars the
game
the
is
guy from
great.
Mandalorian, right?
Yeah, it's oh my gosh, I
What's
usually
his
know his
name?
name and I
Oh,
can't.
Pedro
Pedro
Pascal.
Pascal.
Yeah, got it.
um yeah, it's the Last of Us is great. I've been meaning to play The Last of Us 2. I have it on my shelf behind me. I just haven't gotten to it. Same with the Uncharted games. I only just started playing Uncharted. Been on my
Yeah,
shelf for a year and a half. So it's definitely easier now, I think, for them to take a game franchise and turn it into a film just with the amount of storytelling games are employing these days.
yeah,
It no longer has to be like a cinematic game to get to be turned into a film. It's now most games just inherently have a good degree of storytelling and generally do it well to where it can be converted easily.
right.
And
Yeah, I'd
it's
love
no
to see.
longer about a plumber jumping on sentient mushrooms as he eats non-sentient mushrooms. It's
Yeah, like Mario as a concept of a story is quite out there. It's ridiculous, but that's okay. Like you know what, something like Metroid. I've been playing a lot of Dread. I'd like to see someday a Metroid movie. I think you take the badass female bounty hunter, and if you do it well and do it, nuts stupid, and like have the armor, have the world building, because she's a great character. I love that character. So I think you
yeah.
can do something with Metroid and do well. But I keep thinking about whenever a studio takes a video game property, I feel like there's still that tendency to go back to what they did 20 years ago and make bad movies, just like cash grabs out of a franchise instead of trying to give it the respect it deserves. There's very few video game movies I think that do it well these days, right? I think, like as I said, when Mortal Kombat is a top three video game movie, I think that says something of where it is right now.
See, what did you think about the Silent Hill movies?
So I haven't seen them actually, and I only ever played that
What?
first game. I know I've only played the first game. I'm not a horror fan though. Like, dude, I was playing Phasmophobia with Chard and his guys the other week. I'm fucking scared shitless. I'm lousy with horror games. Like, you have no idea. Like, I just get jump scares. Do not agree with my system. I'll have a heart attack. Like, it's crazy. I've always been that way. Even back to like the Freddy movies. I remember staying up late watching a Freddy Krueger movie. The one where the one kid gets trapped in a roach motel and his hands get stuck in the goo and he pulls his arms away and they're cockroach arms or something. Just that image has scared me off an entire franchise. Like my only exposure to anything horror related is what Rory did with his short film and seeing that. So really, honestly, I'm not a fan of the
So
genre.
Chard and I did an episode on horror stuff a while back, and we did talk, more specifically horror games. But we talked a little about movies. But growing up, I was not into, and I'm still kind of not into, the Freddy movies, the Jason movies, Nightmare on Elm Street, uh, Friday the 13th. Like I can think of everything about the movie. I know his name's Jason Voorhees. I know it was at Camp Crystal Lake. I can't think of the movie name. Um, but yeah, I was never really into those, but I liked the Alien movies. At least, the first two. I really enjoyed those. I didn't see the other ones like 3 and 4 until years and years after they came out.
I
And
forgot there was a
I
fourth.
actually, they're if you're comparing them to the first two, they're not great, not by any
Yeah,
means. But as far as building lore in that universe, it's interesting to see where they went. That's
yeah.
that's kind of what I like about those, and that's what I feel like is the redeeming quality about those movies is the world building and, just expanding the lore of the Alien universe. They don't stand a candle against Alien and Aliens. Alien
Yeah.
3, not nearly as good. Resurrection, mm-mm. It was it was a but it the what they tell you about those places in Alien Resurrection is crazy because 'cause it's been a few hundred years and they're, like, still trying to weaponize this thing, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I like, and so I was never super into horror, I more like the world building behind it, and so that's why I like the Alien franchise. Um, Silent Hill, I've not played any Silent Hill games except for the first one and
Okay.
Shattered Memories, which is a remake of the first one.
Right. Yeah, and I heard that game was great. You were telling us
But
before about that one. That is on my list to go through.
but the Silent Hill movies are really good, and it's great because it's easy to look at them and be like, "Okay, that reaction was over the top." There's one moment where Sybil, the cop, and I don't know if that was her name. I don't remember if that was her name in the movie. Last time I saw the movie was in theaters, but I
Okay.
enjoyed the movies. Um, she it's when she first experiences hell opening up around them and seeing Pyramid Head. And this whole thing happens, and then Pyramid Head wanders away and everything clears up. And she's just standing there and she's like, you could tell she's just at her wits' end. And she doesn't panic or anything, but instead she's just at the top of her lungs screams, "What the fuck?"
That's if there's ever a player moment, that's it right there, right? When a player sees something so
Exactly.
so
Like,
insane, you're like, "What the fuck, game?"
you just like, what just happened? My brain can barely comprehend this. But it felt so real to me when I saw that on the screen. It was great.
I just had to look up the cast. I didn't realize that was 2006. So that's quite a long time ago now. And Sean Bean's in that one. So I have to ask, if Sean Bean's in it, does he die? We can spoil this one.
Well, he's in Revelation, so I'm not sure. I
Okay.
don't think so
Huh.
because in that one, it's not the dad that goes into Silent Hill, it's the mom.
Okay.
And
Got it.
so dad is kind of left back at home, I think. And I'm reaching into the wayback machine of my brain here, so I could be wrong, I could be misspeaking, but I'm pretty sure his role in the movie is pretty limited.
Okay. And there's more than one of these?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Okay. Who directed this one? See now, like I've there's a lot I missed in the
Uh,
early 2000s that are video game related. I can see now.
Apparently Silent Hill Revelation actually had Malcolm McDowell, Kit Harington, Carrie Ann
Really?
Moss.
That's
Yeah.
like those are like good actors. I like Kit Harington from Game of Thrones, Carrie Ann Moss from The Matrix. Come on, interesting, huh? And you know what? They're spaced out pretty good. Silent Hill 2 didn't come out until 2012, so it's not like they were
Yeah.
rushing threes out the door. It wasn't like Resident Evil where they're making 6 movies, like it's a
Yeah,
weekend
it's a
thing.
movie every year or two.
Yeah, it's Christmas time. It's time for another Resident Evil. Let's go.
Right.
That's wild. But you know, I can see how horror
So, yeah,
movies, horror games make for good fodder for movies. That kind of fits, right? Because a lot of horror games are pulling from the tropes and style choices of horror movies to begin with, anyway, right? Like something like Mario and Sonic aren't pulling from any like established movie tropes. They're basically based on the video game, right? But horror is horror, regardless of the genre.
yeah. So, as of right now, I think it's safe to say for every good video game film, there's like 5 or 6 bad ones.
We haven't talked about Uwe
There's the
Boll.
Hitmans,
Well, if you, Uwe
there's
Boll is the one who he's a director who he kept exploiting some kind of tax credit for filmmaking in Germany, and he would use that tax credit to fund and buy the rights to video game franchises. So he's the one who
yeah.
did Blood Rain. He did In the Name of the King, which was a dungeon siege movie, which is just a,
Yeah.
a clicky dungeon crawling game. I like it, but it's not movie material. But
He
he's
did
done
Alone in the
more to
Dark,
damage. Yeah, he's
which
done more to damage the
I'm
genre
pretty
of video game
sure
movies than anybody else I know.
I have a friend who loves horror movies, and he plays the shit out of video games, right?
Yeah.
So when he went to see Alone in the Dark, he was expecting at least something. I think that movie he got up and walked out of.
Is that bad, huh? Yeah. Yeah, Uwe Boll's
So there
famous
you
for
go for that
shitty
one.
movies. Yeah. I don't even know if he does movies anymore. I just know from the antics and the circus around him that a weird guy.
But I think that's a good point to modernize it a little bit and talk about the Sonic movies.
Yeah.
So we've got one so far, and there's one more in the pipeline at the moment, as far as we know. I don't know if they're like jumping on it and being like, "We need to get a trilogy of this," but
Everything's a trilogy these days. Seriously. I was surprised about Sonic 1. I don't know, but you've seen it, of course, right?
yeah,
Yeah. So
I was pleasantly surprised. It was a lot better than I expected.
I think when I saw the early screens of the early Sonic version that they were going to do before the public outcry, he said, "What the hell are you doing?" That was like, "Oh, this is gonna be terrible." But then when they redid the character, it fits. I mean, the voice actor, not what I've imagined at all, but I think he
No,
did a
but
great
he
job.
he did it well,
Yeah,
and it sounded like Sonic. It it wasn't Jaleel White, but it sounded like Sonic.
close as you're gonna get, I guess. The only thing that was weird for me was the token human character, right? Which was basically, was it James Marsden, the guy who played
Yeah,
Cyclops in the X-Men movies, which is a
that's
weird role
right.
for him. I did not
Oh,
expect that.
he was also in Memento. Wife was or not Memento, The Notebook. I'm sorry. He was in The Notebook. The wife was watching The Notebook the other day, and I saw him, and I was like, "Why does he look familiar to me?" And then I looked him up, and I was like, "It's the guy from Sonic."
What a range, though, right? X-Men, Notebook, Sonic the Hedgehog. He's got a hell of an agent. It's like, really, that's pretty wild.
But I mean, Sonic did well enough to where not only did it garner sequels, they managed to wrangle Idris Elba to play Knuckles. I mean,
I
that's
love Idris Elba, but fuck, like,
I do too. I mean, he doesn't do a lot of bad films, you know what I
yeah,
mean? He's got some that aren't for me, but it's hard to argue that a movie he's in is just explicitly bad and or implicitly bad. Either way, just bad.
yeah.
But like Pacific Rim was not a bad movie. It was actually pretty good.
Oh yeah, he
The
was in that
cheese fest
too.
that it was
Yeah, yeah,
good.
yeah,
But I mean, so him coming on to the Sonic franchise feels like it's sort of giving it credentials that it didn't quite have before. Like,
yeah.
I know the first one had Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, big name, but I mean, Idris Elba doesn't have an Earth Girls Are Easy in his repertoire as far as I know.
I'm trying to think. Like, the one thing I know from Idris Elba that I heard was fantastic from his earlier stuff was a show on BBC. I think it was BBC. It was called Luther. I think it's a detective or police show. I've not seen it, but I heard it's supposed to be really amazing, and that's some of his earlier
I
stuff,
think I've heard
as
of
far as I
that.
know. Yeah. So yeah, and like Jim Carrey, I love Jim Carrey. Like, we're from the same town actually, so I love Carrey a lot. But he hasn't done that kind of comedy in a long time, right? Like,
Yeah.
and his Robotnik or Eggman was a throwback to like Ace Ventura a bit, and a little bit of Dumb and Dumber to a bit of degree. Like, he was doing that kind of comedy,
Mhm.
and he was straying from that for so long. He was
Yeah,
good
ever
in
since,
Sonic, but I
Truman
don't know.
Show is when he started to really get
Yeah,
away from that.
more serious. And he stopped acting for a while. He was mostly doing painting and just, kind of commentating on stuff. Like, he was staying away from Hollywood for the longest while. So to see him come back for Sonic, kind of weird, probably for a paycheck, but that's but he was not bad in it. He was okay. Better than I
No.
expected, for sure.
So
But yeah,
it's,
Idris
that was
Elba's
an interesting
Knuckles,
one.
Tails will be in it, but fuck Tails. I don't know. I don't need to see him. Who needs
Yeah, I
him?
don't know anything else about the rest of the casting aside from who was in the first movie and Idris Elba. That's it.
You know what? Maybe that's all you need to know. It's just Idris Elba's Knuckles and Sonic. I don't know,
But
man.
I mean that didn't even repeat the lore from the games either. Like it's everything they were showing was so off the wall
Yeah.
from what they've expressed as lore in any of the games and even the Game Pro comics they used to have that tried to explain both Sonic's history and Robotnik's history as Dr. Kintabor. you know?
I forgot about the GamePro comics. I remember seeing some of
I
those.
store away a lot of useless crap in here, man.
Yeah, man, that's good. It's good. No, it's yeah. Like when I think of Sonic, I first thought they were trying to do something like I thought it might be as bad as Angry Birds. There was an Angry Birds movie. Actually, there's two of them, and I don't like them at all. But I thought that's how they would go. They would go the fully CGI animated flick take on Sonic's world, and probably have the Chaos Emeralds and the weird loop de loops, and just try and wrap a story around that. I'm glad they didn't do that. I don't know if I'm sold on the plot of the Sonic film. Like bringing him to the real world the way they did was kind of odd. But maybe in the sequel they'll explain a bit more about where he comes from and what the origin there is. Like I want just enough origin, but not too much because then it gets silly. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, but I feel like it did a decent job of trying to do what some of the games have done in the past, where it meshes, the what we think of as our reality with what Mobius used to be back when it was Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, etc.
Right.
It was very cartoony there, and the movie actually succeeded where Sonic '06 failed, and a number of other Sonic movies that have tried to incorporate more realistic humanity into the movies
Yeah.
have also failed. So, it I liked it in that regard, and the movie, yeah, it was goofy, but I mean, it's a family-friendly movie, what do you expect?
Yeah, and you know what? My kids liked it, right? And that's the important thing for these days. If it's a movie that I can get through and has Jim Carrey, which is funny, so stuff for me as an adult watching it, and my kids still like it. Yeah, why not? Like that's the thing with like the Angry Birds flick. I couldn't stand it, but my kids liked it, but I hated it. So if they ever asked me to go see Angry Birds 3 if they make one, I'm not gonna take them to the theater for that. But Sonic 2, I would go see Sonic 2 with my kids. Why not?
And then, well, I mean, what you were saying, now Nintendo is going full throttle into what you were just talking about, going a whole CGI. It's the
Yeah,
new Mario movie is gonna be completely CGI by, Illumination, the animation studio that did Minions and
Despicable Me. Yeah,
Despicable Me.
yeah. If you're gonna choose a studio to do an animated movie, honestly, that's the one, right? If you're not gonna get
Yeah.
Pixar, right? If you're not gonna get Pixar, then Illumination is the studio to go for. So I think that's in good hands. I hope it's good. But like even from the original Mario Brothers movie, what kind of story can you do for Mario that would make sense and would be good, right? Because there's none of those games have a lot of plot. I don't think, right?
Honestly, what I'm thinking they're gonna do is probably something along the lines of Mario RPG, as far as outside force comes in and
Okay,
throws everything off. And so you do get a lot of screen time, shared screen time with Bowser and Mario and Peach and Luigi and
right.
Toad, and they if they all get a lot of shared screen time, then it doesn't feel like wasted money on the cast as far as that goes. But also, it lets them tell a new story that, their own story, and it just happens to take place in the Mushroom Kingdom with these characters. And I don't know if you've seen this, but on YouTube, I've been seeing um, animations and animatics where people take a scene from a movie a character has done
Okay,
and animate it to one of these characters they were cast in Mario. So I've seen
I haven't seen these.
an
No,
animatic of Donkey Kong as Seth Rogen
but to
talking to
cast this
Mario.
movie, yeah,
But it kind of fits as far as Seth Rogen doing Donkey Kong. I think he's a good fit for the voice, and this proves it. But they used a scene where um, Seth Rogen is talking to Steve Carell in 40-Year-Old Virgin about how he's like, "I'm one hideous fucker." So you got Donkey Kong saying all that. It's kind of silly,
totally
but
appropriate for a
it
potential
kind of
kids movie.
proves that
Yeah.
he works. And then another one I saw was Bowser using a whole scene from School of Rock for Jack
Okay.
Black. And it kind of works, but it feels a little weird that, it's Jack Black doesn't have as imposing a voice that I feel like Bowser should have,
Right.
and that's my only issue there. But
I like Jack.
otherwise, you
Yeah.
know, Bowser
I
is
like
kind of a goofy villain, so it works in that regard. Go ahead.
yeah, I love Jack Black a lot, but more for the music side of things. School of Rock was okay. I've seen some of the stuff he's done, and it's okay. I think he's more of a musician than a fan of less of the acting stuff that he does. I'm more a fan of his TikTok than I am of his movies. So honestly, uh, but like you said, if the take on the story is the outside force and Bowser and Mario are forced to work together, and they're sharing the screen time, then Jack Black makes good sense as Bowser. You're right, because then he's not necessarily the scary villain, right? He's the goofy villain who's forced to do good. So if they take that
Yeah.
angle with it, you know what? Maybe that could be okay. I could see that. Like the scene in Mario RPG when you recruit Bowser and he's crying or whatever. Like I think that's hilarious. I think it was really well done. So if they make that the Bowser that's in this movie, then I could totally see it. You're right.
Yeah, if it's the Mario RPG approach, I think it'll work,
Yeah.
and I'm kinda hoping that's the case. And it opens up a lot of opportunity for the actors to make the characters their own instead of trying to imitate what, uh, Charles Martinet has done with Mario and Luigi for decades now, you know?
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I know a lot of people are it's a wild card what people's response will be to Chris Pratt, but I think the majority is negative as Mario.
Yeah, that's
And,
definitely my take on it.
if you're looking at Charles Martinet and his version of Mario that we've seen for the last 20 years since Mario 64, where he doesn't say but a handful of phrases and in an accent that's kind of, I don't know,
Maybe not
offensively
appropriate.
Italian, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's hard to imagine Chris Pratt as Mario. But if you take in, Bob Hoskins has been Mario. I accepted him as Mario in that movie. It worked as that role. If you look at Captain Lou Albano as Mario,
Oh, I
it
love him.
worked. Even for the
Yeah.
animated segment, he did Mario justice.
Yeah.
And so I think in that regard, I think Chris Pratt will be okay as long as Mario is not written differently than Mario should be.
Yeah. When I first heard that Charles Martinet was not going to be the voice of Mario, I was probably disappointed because, like, I mean, in my head, I'm thinking, like, I, the thing I hate the most is when studios will take an established, like, franchise or video game franchise or cartoon and make a film of it, and they basically don't use the original voice actors. I don't think the original voice actors from cartoons get enough respect for the roles they do. I don't usually like celebrity voice casting on the whole. Sometimes it works, but a lot of time I think it's really bad. What's the most recent thing? The Marvel What If things, for example. They got a lot of the original movie film cast to do the cartoon voices. It almost
Yeah.
never works, right? Like I love Chadwick Boseman, don't get me wrong, but he's terrible in Marvel What If. His performance is lousy, and they're all lousy. Like it's just too stiff. They're not used to that medium. Give me a regular voice actor, please.
Yeah,
So
it was
yeah,
very strange to get to the point where you have Hank Pym on screen
yeah.
and then like the whole time I was like, that sounds a lot like Michael Douglas. Is that Michael Douglas?
A lot of them were, yeah.
And then it was. And I was like, okay, why did he sound weird?
Right. Who's the guy who plays in Guardians of the Galaxy? Peter's father, Kurt Russell. They had Kurt
Kurt
Russell
Russell. Yeah,
reprise.
he played himself too.
Yeah, so like, there's a lot of that, and just like again, some of them work,
Like
a lot of them don't.
you're getting legacy A-listers to come in and
Yeah,
read like 6 lines.
that's
It's
Disney
so
money.
weird to me.
It's the power of Disney. So you
But
take the
then they don't
Mario.
get
Yeah,
I don't understand. I mean, I know and this is a tangent, which tangents are tangents, but like, why did they not get the other movie actors to do the roles when they got everybody else? Like, I understand Robert Downey Jr. Okay, yeah, he'd kind of gone his separate way. He's kind of done with Marvel. Get it.
yeah,
But then you got Dave Bautista, Drax, actively Drax right now. I know he's not going to be in the future. After Guardians 3, he's done. But
yeah.
they've not even filmed Guardians 3 yet. So why was he not approached to do that? It's weird to me.
I think it's contracts. Like I don't know if they got Samuel L. Jackson for any of these. Has he been in? No, he's been in a few of them, but I don't think they got him either. So I think it's probably money, right? Money talks, contracts, who they can lock up. Like Black Widow was not the same actress either, and she's also going through a thing with Disney right now. So It's
Yeah,
probably the
it's
money,
they
right?
got somebody else for Black Widow that was also a name I knew.
Oh, really?
Who was it? Who played her? I'm trying to I can't remember off the top of my head.
I don't know, but you're right. Like the best performances I think are probably like from that are like The Watcher, for example, who had he is a known actor, but he's also done a lot of voice work from what I know, and he was really great. I can't remember his name. I feel bad, but he was fantastic. But a lot of the performances are not great in that. I was disappointed, and it's the same thing with when they take cartoons or stuff and they use celebrity voicing. I don't really care for it. So the Mario movie, I was expecting Charles Martinet, but in my head I was thinking they would probably it's Nintendo doing this. They would probably want to do it like the Angry Birds movie, which is not good, but they would actually want to build a Mario movie in the Mario King, the Mushroom Kingdom in the Mario world. And to me, that means they would use Charles Martinet. But if they're not going that route, if they're taking a different, a more Sonic kind of thing, or maybe like a not realistic, but maybe less of a video game tropey type film, then yes, Charles Martinet actually does not make sense, and I'm kind of over it. I still don't like Chris Pratt though. I love Chris Pratt in Guardians, but I don't think he's Mario. And if I watch that flick, because I'm gonna watch it, if I do watch it and I hear him attempt an Italian accent, I'm walking out. I don't want to hear it. I really don't.
I well, I mean, he's a lot of people just don't like Chris Pratt for some reason. I don't understand. I do think it's weird that you managed to call that on Twitter back in February,
I know.
6 months before they announced the voice cast. You're like, "If it's Chris Pratt, blah, 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 then it's Chris Pratt." Of course,
Behold my
but
psychic ability. Yeah. I love Parks and Rec. I do like Chris Pratt a lot, but yeah, I just don't know about him as Mario. It's funny because everybody else in that cast probably work. I think would probably be okay. Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. I don't know why DK's in that flick, but you know what? Seth Rogen, yes,
yeah,
good
right.
choice. Charlie Day as Luigi. I totally see that. I love Charlie Day. I think he'd make a fantastic
Yeah,
Luigi.
I can kinda see that. I'm a
Yeah.
little on the fence about him, but I think he could make it work.
Yeah.
Um, Even Keegan-Michael Key as
Oh
Toad.
yeah. I love
Like,
him.
it seems like such a weird choice just because I knew the Toad sounded like this, but
But you know what? He'll do a voice that won't be as high, but he'll do a voice
yeah.
like similar tone, and I think he's gonna nail that character depending on how they do it. I think he'd be great at it.
Yeah, I think that they all have the potential to make these characters iconically theirs, at least on in film adaptations,
Yeah.
and it could be cool. It just I it at this point, it all falls upon the writing.
Yeah.
That's really where the linchpin of this whole thing is if it's not an interestingly written movie or a movie that's written in a way that lets these characters do more than just save Princess Peach from Bowser again, it's gonna the movie's not gonna do well, first off, if it's just the same
Yeah.
old story again,
Yeah. It's
and
got to be something different.
not gonna let the characters shine. It's not gonna let the actors shine as the characters.
Why is The Rock not starring as Mario in this? Honestly, it's a step up from Rampage. Give this man a good animated role besides Maui. Got to give him something else.
Trying to remember who else was in this. It's weird that Charles Martinet is just being given a cameo role.
Yeah. Other characters. Like what? Like the bombs blowing up, the mushroom. Like, what's his role? I mean, at least he's got something because I think people would definitely ride if he wasn't in it at all. But yeah,
Yeah.
who
Oh,
was
yeah, you got
somebody's?
Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach,
Yeah, I don't.
Queen's
I'm not
Gambit.
familiar with her. Who?
She was the main character in Queen's Gambit. She was
Oh
also
yes,
in
oh, yeah,
Peaky
she's good.
Blinders,
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. That was a good show.
and Fred Armisen playing Cranky Kong, of all things. So not just Donkey Kong is it Cranky Kong is in this. So they're just, like, going all in on the the Mario Cinematic Universe here.
Like, I'm wondering, are they going to do it kind of like Wreck-It Ralph, breaking that kind of like fourth wall type of thing with video games come to life type of angle? Because otherwise, how do you make the Mushroom Kingdom and DK World kind of mesh together? I guess they're the same universe, but it
I
still
don't know,
feels very
like,
different.
well, because there's the theory that Cranky Kong is the original Donkey Kong,
Right? Yeah,
and
I've heard that.
he's the one that Mario dealt with in the original Donkey Kong games. So maybe that's why Cranky Kong is in it, and it sort of generates a little bit of tension in a scene where otherwise there would not have been by introducing Cranky Kong into the mix. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
but
modern Donkey Kong probably doesn't have a whole lot of issue with Mario. Original Donkey Kong would.
especially if it's Seth Rogen, he's probably just gonna be a stoner Donkey Kong from the get go. But if
Yeah, he's probably gonna be super chill and laid back. Just
yeah,
give me my bananas, man.
but if Cranky Kong is the if they can't go with that storyline though, because there's no way that Mario in this movie is going to be what 60 if he dealt with Cranky Kong. There's no
That's
way.
true.
So I'm curious to see what the story is, but it definitely feels weird, and I really hope this works because, like I said, I'm not so hung up on Mario, but I would love to see other Nintendo franchises be turned into films. But this has to do well because if this doesn't do well, Nintendo's gonna go back in the fucking vault for 30 years, like Disney, and we're not gonna see nothing. So I hope
Yeah,
it
well,
works. I
I'm
hope.
given that I'm pretty sure Illumination, I don't know if they're part of Universal, but they're at least heavily connected with Universal in
Oh, I'm not
that,
sure.
Minions and Despicable Me are parts of Universal theme parks now,
Right.
And with that, chances are with Nintendo's connection to Universal right now, that's probably why Illumination is doing it. But I would hope that, they're approaching it with the reverence feels like a weird word to use here, but with the attention it deserves
Yeah.
to make it a
100%.
movie and make it thrive. And it would behoove Universal to make this movie work well since they've got that deal with Nintendo. And right now, they've only got Mario Land set up, but there's supposed to be Zelda in the future, Donkey Kong, and you know, if this is if this is a success, it's gonna be a massive influx of Nintendo themed films aimed at
Yeah.
children and families for years to come.
Give me a Zelda movie, I'd be all over that. Depending on how they want to, like any of the Zelda games, the plot is just enough there that I could see a movie based around that for sure. I'd love to see a Zelda movie. Absolutely.
And I mean, how hard would it be to insert a 2-hour adventure into the middle of the timeline somewhere?
Oh yeah, I mean,
That's
especially with the
easy.
Zelda universe with all these parallel timelines and back and forth, you
Yeah.
could totally fit it in. Like I look at something like Castlevania, the TV show, fucking fantastic, right? So if you give the writing the
Yeah.
respect, like you said, the reverence, because you need to do that for fandom these days. You give them the right
Mhm.
director, the right writing, you can totally do great video game movies. But it's all comes down to the writing, and I'm really curious about Mario. So I'll cross my fingers.
We didn't even mention The Witcher.
Oh shit, that's another one too.
It's
I
not a
love the fucking
movie, but
Witcher.
it's a film
Well,
adaptation of a video game.
right, and it's
Mm,
yeah, like Witcher 3 is such a great game series and
I
I love the
I
TV
still
show. I
haven't
didn't
played
think I would
any of the
like
games.
Henry Cavill, but dude, he's fucking good. I'm looking forward to that too.
There's a story about him. The way he speaks in the Witcher series was not how he was supposed to speak in the Witcher series.
I heard that, yeah.
He was supposed to just be Henry Cavill, and he couldn't help himself. He accidentally tried to imitate the guy who does the voice of Geralt in the games,
Yeah. I think it's
and
Dave Cockle, I
nobody had
think.
the heart to tell him, "You're not supposed to be doing that." And after a while, they just kinda let it be, and they liked it, and that's
Yeah.
what he did.
It's awesome because like the show is based basically on the novels, the books, right? And the game is
Yeah.
kind of its own thing. But the game is what is so popular with a lot of people right now. And Henry Cavill is a huge fucking game nerd, like a lot of us, right?
Yeah.
He like building a PC and showing on Twitter and shit. Like he's a huge gaming guy. So for him, playing this role is playing Geralt from the games. And like to me, I can see that. Like
Yeah.
I've tried reading the books and I've tried listening to the audiobooks and I like them, but they don't. The performance of Geralt is not the same as The Witcher in Witcher 3, and I love that character so much in Witcher 3. But it's fine. Like the show's great. I love it.
But, there was another thing I was gonna mention too. Oh, yeah, they, like, it there were just so many memes about that show before it even came out, like, because Henry Cavill is such a notorious character actor, and
Yeah.
he has to take time to get into his role, there were memes like, "Oh, The Witcher is being delayed because Henry Cavill got stuck on side quests." You know?
I love that. Yeah, I heard the rumor that he slept in his armor or something like that to get into the role of the character, which I love that shit. I love
Man.
when actors go really into a role. Like he definitely loves that character, and it shows in his performance.
Mhm.
So that's the thing too. Like
And
Chris Pratt. Maybe Chris Pratt will be an amazing Mario. Maybe he sleeps with a red hat every night next to his wife and eats a lot of mushrooms. Who knows? Maybe he's maybe he's preparing his body for that role. So we just have to wait
I
and see.
mean, I do think he has the acting chops to nail it and make it work because he can
Yeah.
play serious and he can play goofy, and I mean, that's asking a lot of a Mario movie, but he can do both. Have you seen
Yes.
Tomorrow War? He was
No. Is that good?
Tomorrow War was really good,
Okay.
and you
I
make
want
sure you
to.
have time to sit down and watch it because it's a 2.5 hour film, but,
Oh, is it?
I
That's
mean,
the
it's
Amazon
got
Prime thing, right?
right.
I didn't
It,
realize it was
like
that long. Okay.
it covers a lot, and at a point, you're like, "How is there more movie?" There was one point where the wife and I were watching it, and we thought it was about to wrap up, paused it, it's got 45 minutes left.
That's okay.
They
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
they covered the content that you'd see in a movie trilogy in one movie. They answered every question you could possibly have,
Okay.
wrapped it up in a neat little bow, and every bit of it was enjoyable. Even the
Huh.
like, wife Wolf is consistently and constantly when we watch movies, she's like, "This doesn't make sense. Why is that happening?" And she kept doing that at the beginning of this movie, right?
Right.
And then down the line, they'd answer it. And she was like, "Okay. All right. I can get behind that. Okay." Like by the end, she was satisfied and she was not frustrated with the the time travel loopholes she had come up with and the
Okay.
issues they had and all that. So it was pretty cool.
See, I like that. I thought it was like an hour and a half, maybe type of movie that would pose some interesting questions and then kind of hang you and hook you for a potential sequel that would never show up, right? Like movies like Will Smith did a movie called Bright on Netflix a couple years ago, and I love that
Yeah.
movie for as bad as it was, but it answers nothing that you want answered lore wise with that world, and they're never going to, right? Like it was as close to a Shadowrun movie as you're ever going to get, and we're never getting any
Mm.
more. So that's why I was kind of put off on Tomorrow War. It's like Amazon funded movie film. Maybe it's good, but is it just a chance at making a vehicle for a franchise, or is it actually a single movie? But if it's like a 2 hour movie and it's contained, I'm totally down to watch that. I actually want to watch that now. I'll be up for that.
Yeah, I honestly can't imagine where how they would approach making a sequel to that movie.
Okay,
With
interesting.
the way everything unfolded, if they ever make a sequel, the sequel will be nowhere near as good as the original. It's just
Yeah,
it's
that's
gonna
that's
be
movies though,
shoehorned if they
right?
try to get a sequel out of it.
Yeah,
But it is a good movie, and Chris Pratt did the role well. You know, he's got issues. His character is not, just goofy good guy in this one. He's got a serious role. There's a few moments where he cracks a joke, but it's not Star-Lord level. It's
right,
it's more like average guy level, and it all works. And so I think he can make Mario work, and I just hope that audiences don't shy away from the movie purely because of the cast. If the movie deserves to be panned, it deserves to be panned, but I don't
right.
think the cast should be what holds people back.
Yeah, and like I said, I like Chris Pratt, but you're right. It's all lives or dies by the writing. I think right. A movie is not going to succeed or fail based on cast alone. A lot of the time, right? There's more
Right.
to movies than
And
that. So
there's a lot of people who are like, "Oh, the Ghostbusters movie with Melinda McCarthy and
Kate McKinnon, yeah,
uh Kate McKinnon." I love Kate McKinnon.
she's
I really
great.
enjoy Melissa McCarthy. I think they're both great. Leslie Jones, hit or miss.
Yeah.
I saw her. She's doing Supermarket Sweep now, and she's really channeling Steve Harvey,
Oh,
which is
really?
weird. Yeah.
Okay.
And then like I've seen her do things, and I've never seen her just straight up act like Steve Harvey. And that's what I'm getting from Supermarket Sweep.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, she's not
But
bad. I watched a couple SNL episodes with her, but you're right. That
yeah,
cast in that movie is not the problem. The problem with that movie was the writing, the script, right?
it was all the writing. It's not
Yeah.
because they made our Ghostbusters girls. No, who cares?
Nope.
It's just a poorly written film. The climax sucked.
Yeah.
The villain was lame. Like they were like they thought they had this cool idea of let's make the villain the Ghostbusters logo, you know?
Yeah, it's just
No.
no, it's dumb. It's
The
taking
villain
everything
is
about the original
literally the
movies and throwing it out
ghost.
the window. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally the ghost at the beginning of the real Ghostbusters cartoon that's walking down the street avoiding things. Like that's the villain
What
of
if that was a
the
movie?
2016 Ghostbusters. And it's not. It's just a poorly written movie. They
Yeah.
had so much good casting. Chris Hemsworth as a dopey male Janine. No,
Yeah.
Janine's cool. Janine was badass because she was badass. She was pushy, she
Yeah.
was intense, she knew what needed to happen and did it, you know? That
Yeah.
was why people like Janine. And replacing her with a doofy model who's just taking on clerical work in his spare time. No.
And like it's not the actor because we've seen the actor in like Thor. He's an iconic actor in the Marvel franchise. Like he's a good actor, but given
Yeah,
bad
and
scripts, you get a shitty movie. So yeah.
Melissa McCarthy as the Ray analog totally fits.
Yep.
Kate McKinnon as the Egon analog totally fits.
Yep. Fantastic.
Um, Kristen Wiig as the Venkman analog.
Yeah, she
It
was good
it
too.
fits, and it just it was just not a. It's not on the actors at that point. That's all I'm
No.
saying.
Yeah. At
And
least
I think
they get a second
people
go at that with
rally against.
Afterlife. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people rally against bad movies too often, blaming the cast. It's just a poorly written movie. The project was not greenlit the way it should have been greenlit.
Yeah. Like you can tell when a studio's like, we need to make one of these, and here's what's going to be in it, and it's all like a pie chart of money, 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 right? And it really reflects in what comes out. So that's why like Ghostbusters Afterlife. I mean, I'm hoping that turns out good. It looks like it will. It looks like that's more of a in the spirit of the original two, right? Not necessarily a
Yeah.
sequel, but it's like a next generation of Ghostbusters, but done in a more classic tone. I think
Well, it is a
that's the way to go.
sequel just in the fact that it's Spengler's grandchildren, you know?
Right. But it's like it's potentially like a reboot kind of, right? Like that the distant future sequel. There's that trend now where they're taking all the original actors from these things and giving cameos in movies, and it works sometimes. I'm hoping it works in this one because this one is going to have Annie Potts, Janine is going to be in it, Ernie Hudson's
Mhm.
going to be in it, right? All the original cast has a cameo that's still live anyway. So I'm curious to how they do it. My wife really wants to see it for her birthday this year, so we're going to go check it out.
Well, there's a theory out there, and man, we are on a big tangent right now, but
Us? Never.
uh the name Afterlife is actually a sort of nod to Harold Ramis's character of Egon.
Right.
Like he's sort of guiding the kids from the afterlife
God, I hope that's
because he
like
had unfinished work.
I
You
hope
know,
it's
that
that in the invisible hand sense and not that they're going to try and do him in CGI puppetry. like that.
no, it's everything I've
Yeah.
read from the cast, it sounds like whatever they did, it was very tasteful and fitting for the franchise and,
Okay.
you know, respectful of Harold Ramis. So,
Yeah.
as long as it's not like some goofy Casper Harold Ramis, I
Fuck.
think it'll be fine, you know?
Yeah. Well, cross my fingers.
Alrighty. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
No, I think that covers video game movies. I think we're good on that part. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is with a heavy heart that we must announce that this is the final episode of Press B.
Yep.
Um, responsibilities at home have made it to where pushing one of these out every week is not exactly feasible anymore.
Yeah.
with
Podcasting's
with
hard,
with
y'all. I've said it
yeah,
before.
we
There's a lot of work involved, man.
yeah, we love the community we've built. Thank you all for listening. You're all troopers for sitting in and strapping in and dealing with our tangents and verbal side questing we do every episode.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, there's few things I've done, I think, creatively in my life that I've been more proud of than this podcast. This podcast is something been great. I've tried Twitch, I've tried YouTube,
Mhm.
I've tried writing and stuff on the side, and I don't think I've ever stuck with something this long and invested so much of my energy into making something as best as I can, and Press B was that for me. Really sad that we can't continue, but like Wulff said, like, you know, between work and potentially moving, and I also have a baby, my third, coming in February. I know what I'm in for, and I'm, you know,
CJ.
GP's also quite busy as well, and just we lost Pulse, so it's been a drain this past year. We've all been super busy, and anybody listening who has that tough job and also has kids, you understand, right? The lack of free time you have, and as much as you want to continue, it just, if I can't put in the time necessary to for us to be successful, then I think at some point we got to say we got to step back, and I think that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. This has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed the entire process. It's the Press B will always be near and dear to my heart. It was something that I had kicking around in my brain for 3, 4 years before we started,
Right.
and when we were all hanging out and just like, we should do a podcast, I was like, well, I have an idea.
Yeah. Well, I remember when you first
And
mentioned the
it,
idea to me, I'm like, yeah, because I've been wanting to do a podcast for like 3, 4 years, but who the fuck wants to listen to me talk about myself? So like, right? So, and I was always concerned about doing one on video games because video games is a very saturated market in podcasting.
yeah,
But when you mentioned the retro angle, and I think our connections to Twitch community a lot, I think it worked really well. I was very happy with what we did.
yeah, same. So
So
we will definitely keep the podcast live on on all the major platforms for at least a year. Hopefully, as long as we can beyond that. But
yeah,
uh, we'll put them up on YouTube still and get that all done. So you'll always be able to go back and listen to us again if you want.
yeah. I mean, and like we'll still be around, right? Like
Oh
I have
yeah,
no excuse now. You'll still find me on Twitch at some time because again, what excuse do I have not to stream now before the baby comes? Or you know, you of course find me on Twitter as always.
and I mean I've not been streaming for the last couple weeks because of my time constraints, but I will also be back on Twitch soon. So there's that.
Yeah,
By the time you guys hear, well, shortly after you guys hear this, because this is going live
tomorrow.
tomorrow. Shit!
I'm uploading it like
Wow, we are
after
at
this
the wire
recording.
on this one.
Dude, it's I'm not even waiting for 1 a.m. This is going up as soon as I do the levels. I'm uploading it because I've been too like I think you mentioned
Swamp.
offline. It's like high school, right? Graduating from high school, where just like you're nervous, you're scared a bit. I'm kind of relieved in some ways, even though I'm gonna miss the hell out
Yeah.
of doing this with you guys. It's yeah, it's time to put it aside for now.
No. After we decided this the other day, I was definitely just like moping around the house for a day and a half.
Yeah, same.
Everything I was doing. If I had time to just sit and think, I get all mopey and just like, oh,
Yeah, my wife's like, why are you so upset? And I'm like, oh, we're not gonna stop the podcast for now. Like, oh, that's too bad. And she moved on her way.
yeah,
It's like
right.
she never
Same
got it.
here.
That's fine. She was
Yeah,
supportive,
Wife Wolf
but not a
is
listener.
exactly. Wife Wolf was like, "Yeah, you guys, I think that's the right choice."
Yeah. So and like I'm sad GP couldn't be here today, but I know he would have wanted to. But like his life is very busy right now too. It's been a lot this past year, and anybody listening to this, you've been through a lot. We know. So I do want to say, if you have ever liked our videos or watched us on YouTube or told a friend or pitched money to Patreon or any of those things, any of that support meant the world to us. And I want you to understand how important that is to podcasters. They don't get that feedback from their listeners, and it's very important they do, because it makes my day. When we got our first 5-star review on iTunes, that made my fucking day. So that kind of support, you may not think it matters, it totally matters, because a lot of us podcasters are small. So
Yeah.
if you're not listening to Press B, I want you to find other small podcasts out there, maybe video games, maybe something else, and I want you to go to their Twitter, subscribe to their Twitter. I want you to go to their iTunes, leave them a review. If they have Discord, fucking join it. give some kind of support to a small podcaster out there, because I'm telling you guys, it makes the world of distance to those guys doing what they do. It's incredibly difficult to do a podcast. It's a lot more work than you may think, and it's really one of those
And
hobbies, and it is a hobby. Is the more you
yeah,
get put into it, the more you get out of it, but it can be very draining. So the support from fans is so critical to a podcast, and
and
we've been lucky to have
and
what we've had.
not just podcasts, like anything. If you like something, let the creator know that you like it. If you
Yeah,
like a local restaurant, give it a review on Yelp. Don't just save that crap for the negative stuff. Put the positive responses out there for everything that you enjoy so that the creators and owners and whatever it is they might be get that feedback and know, okay, I'm doing something right, you know. We
yeah,
don't have enough of that in the world anymore, and I think that's something needs to come back a little bit.
yeah. The world's a little too negative. So, but hopefully this podcast you've enjoyed it. If you're listening and you stuck with us, it means the world to us. It really does. And this is very hard for us to give up on Press B, but it's been a wild ride, man. 2 years,
Yeah.
110 episodes, I think, is this one.
Roughly, if
Yeah.
you include Tap B, probably more like 115, something like that.
I mean, I've said
I
before,
think this
but
is
most
gonna be
podcasts are lucky to
104.
get past 6 episodes. We did 110
Yeah,
in 2 fucking years. Like, that's a fucking achievement. That's like the top 3% of podcasts. So
and
I'm
we
happy with
we
that.
started it, what, biweekly, and then we went
Yeah.
weekly and stuck to it somehow. I don't know how we managed that, but we did it,
Yeah. We've never missed
and
an episode. We've come close, real close.
more times than
Before,
you guys know, more
yeah,
times than
but
we are probably comfortable admitting.
yeah, but we've always got an episode out there, and I think that was always really important to me, was to get that episode out there.
Mhm.
So good.
And I'd also like to say one final thank you to Arthur the Last Ancient for doing our theme music. He knocked it out of the park.
Oh, huge.
And thank you to all our guest hosts we've had over the 2 years we've been doing this. So thank you to everybody who's been a part of this. We love you
Yeah.
all. Oh man.
Am I stopping the video?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to call it.